Hi, how are you guys doing? This is a video that's going to basically go through the material that you need to know for this week. We are finishing up our unit on rocks and the rock cycle. So I have posted to your classroom a couple of short videos, and then this video itself will also be posted for you so that you can watch my instruction, and then your work will be in the classroom, okay? So we studied basically 3 different types of rock, and these are the only classifications, meaning types of rocks that we have on our planet. And those are igneous rocks, metamorphic rocks, and what we call sedimentary rocks. Igneous rocks are rocks that are normally found at, near, or by volcanoes and divergent boundaries where we have hot magma coming up between the cracks, because in order for igneous rock to have been formed, the minerals in the rock have to have melted. So that is the only way igneous rock forms. And as that rock cools, either inside the earth, which it can do, or outside the earth, it is talked about as 2 different types of igneous rock. Intrusive, which means inside the earth, or extrusive, which means outside the earth. So these are the 2 different types of igneous rock that can form. Now, it's not all the same because the composition of all of the minerals on the earth are not the same. They're not all in the same location. So you can get some variations in the type of igneous rock that you see, but basically that it can only have been formed from magma. The other type of rock we have is metamorphic rock. Metamorphic rock can only be formed through heat and pressure. But it can't melt. If it melts back again, it's going to go back to being igneous rock. So the rock can get really hard so that the atoms inside it start to move and rearrange, or it can be really pressed together really hard so it forces those atoms to rearrange. And when that happens, it becomes a different type of rock. All rock wears away. So igneous rock wears away, metamorphic rock wears away. And when it wears away, all those little bits that come off of it are considered sediment. So, which is basically dirt, right? It's basically dirt. Everything we see outside in our yards and stuff, all the rocks and stuff, it's all been broken down and worn away from other types of rock. And so this becomes sedimentary. If we look at the Grand Canyon, we see layers of rocks, and sometimes those layers are sort of white, yellowish, sometimes they're red, sometimes they're more brown, and that has to do with what's inside the rock. So the reddish rock has a higher content of something called iron oxide, and it goes red because it's been exposed to oxygen with water. So that's why it turns red, because it's almost like thinking about it as rust. The iron inside the rock or inside the sediment has rusted. Then you get things like there's a really white layer close to the top of the Grand Canyon that goes all the way around the Grand Canyon, and it's been nicknamed the bathtub ring. And that is made of something called coconino sandstone. So all these are different types and layers of rock. The older rocks are on the bottom. The younger rocks are on the top. There is one layer of rock, or there's several different layers of rock called limestone. And that limestone was laid down when that part of the earth, the Colorado Plateau, which is where the Grand Canyon is, was covered by warm, shallow seas. Very, 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 very long time ago. Hundreds of millions of years. When the sea receded, so when the planet cooled down and all that water sort of pulled back and was turned back into ice and glaciers, it left behind sea animals that died and decomposed, and that limestone has the calcium that was made up with the crab shells or the trilobite shells, all that sort of stuff. That is what makes it limestone, is because it has that material in it that was once belonged to a living animal, and that's the limestone. So we study the Grand Canyon. The Grand Canyon, the oldest layer in the Grand Canyon is 1.7 billion years old. And it is called the metamorphic basement rock. We can study that rock based on the age of that rock. We know that that rock was originally formed around the time that the North American continent was being formed. It takes a really long time for sedimentary layer to form. It goes through a weathering and erosion process, a deposition process, and then it gets compacted together and cemented together. So some of those layers are hundreds of feet deep, and it takes millions of years. So the layer that's just beneath the layer that's currently forming, because we do have another layer forming on top of the Grand Canyon, it's between 200 and 300 million years old. So it's not something that forms in 10 years or 50 years or 100 years or even 1,000 years. It's something that forms over a very, very long period of time. That is essentially what we want to talk about in terms of layers or types of rocks. You need to look at the rock cycle diagrams that I have created and I'm attaching in your classroom because it goes through, very clearly shows you how rock changes. It's basically describing the process for the changing of rock. And that will be on the test on Thursday. Tomorrow, I will be placing a review worksheet in the classroom for you to work on, and we'll go over it. Also, I'm not going to release the test until after the classroom hours on Zoom that take place at 10 o'clock on Thursday morning, okay? So that's essentially it for now. Please let me know if you have any questions at all. I'm more than happy to answer them. I can answer them either by creating a Zoom meeting where we can get together and talk about it, or by responding to any questions that you post in the classroom. Hope you're doing well. Stay safe. Hang in there. Bye.